Shut up, compressor. Okay, so I had hoped to paint the tires black and then mask around the actual hubs and paint them silver, but that's proving dicey, so I'm going to go back to my old tried and true method, and I'm going to paint the hubs first. Not bad. I love this Tamiya LP-11. Okay, there's one down. Okay, second one. Okay, so it looks like on the M's, the spinner on the Curtis Electric prop was a dull silver. That makes that a lot easier. Cool. Is that? Alright, since I hit the wheels with LP-11 to get the hubs, I need to come in and brush paint the rest of the wheels, the actual tire portion, and to ensure that I've got a nice, good demarcation line to work from, we're going to be making another all-clad wash. Come on, there you go. Now, typically I try to make these pretty thin so that they're not going to overpower things, but we want a strong demarcation line in this. So we're not going to fuck around with rubber black or any of that stuff. We're just going to go straight to XF1. There's that. Just make sure that it's... So we're not just grabbing some thin black juice, but some actual paint. One, two, three, 4, 5. That should be good. Now, as per earlier videos, I believe in the B-17, and also earlier in some of this, maybe around the gear bays and stuff, the aqua gloss wash, when you make it with black, turns this sort of blue, black, gray kind of color. But never fear, it will all calm down in time. That's basically the milky white of the aqua gloss getting in the way, etc., etc. So basically we just want to come in here and make sure that we're carrying around the edges. Look at that. Nice. after I do this, I think I want to make another one. Not quite as strong. I'm going to pick out the actual wheel detail, but for now, this is where we want to be. Okay, so now we're going to move the black wash aside and bring in a rubber black wash so that we can handle the hub details. Just like that. Okay. Okay, so next up we're going to conduct a quick experiment with paint mule and some decals off of the Aeromaster sheet that the fireball markings are on, because looking at the masks, I am not at all happy with the way the bureau number came out on the tail, or where it will go on the tail. So we're stuck using decals. And before I commit to these, I have a couple things I want to ask of them, including how well they go down over certain clear coats and no clear coats. I believe I've got some dry transfers as well that I want to give a shot and see how they work, because last time I tried the hobby decal dry transfers, they were complete garbage and they literally would not stay down on anything. So, all right. For these, I'm using some Mr. Mark Setter, which it's basically Guns' setting solution. Works pretty well. All right, we're gonna let those sit for a bit and come back and see how they do. So real quickly, while we let the decals cook, I've been playing with this hobby decal dry transfer, and holy fuck is it stubborn. It takes quite a while to get going. The cool thing is, unlike some, I don't know, like Archer transfers, things like that, where you're not really sure if you got it down, on this you can actually see it release. So it's a pain in the ass. But it's a pain in the ass that actually shows you what's happening. And so then when you go and pull it up, look at that. It doesn't seem to really hurt the surrounding paint. So these might be really, really useful for the stencils. That's something I need to check. That's why I cut the thing in half. Where are you? It's how well it does over bare metal. I'm a little bit over the moon right now because I've literally never had good fortune with these things before. I've never gotten them to work. This is the first time. I think it's starting to make a bit of sense. Let's put this right in here. Now, it's one thing to work on this when it's a paint mule, just kind of sitting flat on a desk, and you can put a lot of pressure to it, right? That's my biggest concern, is I don't have a great sense of how I would necessarily pull this off on a kit with a bunch of surfaces. Like if I had to put this on the tail, apply a bunch of pressure to the stabilizers, yeesh. In the past, I've made the mistake of trying to do this like I've done dry transfers in the past, where you get a pencil out, kind of go to town, right? The problem with that is you make all this shit dark and you literally can't tell what's going on. So the key is to get a burnishing tool that lets you. In this case, the humble toothpick. Okay, close enough. I didn't get all the outside ones there, but okay, now that poses a problem for bare metal, and that the burnishing, well, maybe, hold on. Okay, so there's a little bit of adhesive left over from all that fun. Let's see, where's the damn water? Okay, so it looks like that is an option, but it's not as good on the bare metal. But it seems to work really well over paint. So, something to consider for the future. Quick check in here with these things. They're not really sucking into the details all that well, are they? This one over here is just kind of floating on its ass. Okay, so I'm bringing some Solvacet into the picture. The typical rule with Solvacet is once you get it applied, do not touch it. So let's get this shit down. And maybe give it overnight and see what happens. Okay, so after waiting overnight, not the biggest fan of how these decals went down. Part of this is me trying to do a thing where you put them down and don't really touch them and kind of hope they suck into the details themselves, and that didn't really happen. As you can see, the N over here is swimming in some Mr. Mark Softer at the moment to see if that will alleviate things. This one didn't really suck down into details all that well. This one did-ish. It's frustrating that the carrier film is so prominent on all of them, especially because I'm going to have to use 2 of these on the tail of the jug. So I'm going to try a few more things, just kind of going crazy and doing things a bit even more differently from how I would do them. All these different decal sheets that have like 3 or 4 options, there's always one option where it's just like, nope, I'm never going to do that one. Makes it handy for being able to test out different decals. There's D. Now for D, I'm going to try putting down some microsol first. No setting solution, straight to the solvent. All right. Next, we're going to try straight up Solvaset. Problem with that is it sucks down very fast and you don't have really any chance to work with it at all. And for this final one, we're going to be putting down some aqua gloss. And once again, we'll give those some time to set in a little bit, and we'll revisit them later. Okay, so coming back to the decals, I'm not super thrilled with the way that anything really went down. The aqua gloss base, I think, did decently, but this N is, I mean, compared to the HV, the N is just translucent, basically. And I'm thinking, I mean, these decals are 15 years old at this point, and you know, like this one, I mean, this literally had microsol placed under it, and then it was just dropped down and kind of let to do its thing, and not great. But I'm wondering, with the age, maybe they are losing some of their adhesion, and that's what we're seeing in there is various bits just not adhering. So with that in mind, and this one over here, this was the Solvaset underneath, so that one seemed to do okay, but I mean, there's still like, there's ridging, and not a fan of these decals at this point, so I'm going to have to figure out a way to work with them. Or I'm going to have to figure out a way to get my cutter to cut those damn tail codes. But I want to try one more thing before I kind of walk away, which is this AK decal adapter. Now, this stuff seems to be sort of like useful and not useful, kind of depending on the decals. It saved my ass, quite literally, when I was working on Italerri's F104 and having to use their kit decals because the Zotz decals shit the bed as usual. And it did magically well on those, but then it just completely fails on others. So, holy shit. Did y'all hear the coyotes? Man, somebody's having a bad night. Anyway, I want to give this stuff a shot, and I want to give a shot to kind of putting down stuff the way that I normally do, which is giving it more attention than these sort of let them sit in their own pile of shit and come out not so great. I'm not a big fan of letting decals sit because I'm impatient, but letting them sit here just has not worked out all that great. Part of that might be the thickness of the decals, part of it might be the age. I'm actually honestly shocked that the D decal here came out as poorly as it did, because it literally swimming in microsol. So, yeah. Let's go ahead and start getting some of these things wet. One of the reasons I'm using the fuselage codes is they've got a lot of carrier film, so we can keep an eye on how the whole decal does. So something like an insignia can hide a lot of defects. We're going to put the Z right here. Got some shit over here, but it's good as bad as any for the UN. The fuck is that? I love spring in Texas and the return of the various random bench insects. Okay, time for a little bit of the decal adapter. Fucking bugs. Swear to God. Alright. So I'm going to try that on the Z. Read on this star. And what the fuck? Let's see if we can fix D. I doubt we can. D might already be gone. And what's the worst that happens, right? We ruin a decal that's already trashed on a paint mule. We're gonna try this other shit because we're throwing everything at the decals to figure out what works mode. This is soft from Spot Model. Try that on the that on the U. Try some of this ammo shit on the N. Yeah, that stuff smells different from all the others. And then we'll try a bit of the Tamiya Mark Fit Strong on the actual big old insignia up here. This is another one. I've used it on some stuff and it's just laughed it off. It is done literally dick all. But on other things, I've heard people having great success. So, one of the things about the decal adapter is it actually encourages you to come back and keep fucking with shit. So, yeah. Let's try that out. Focusing. Focus. all of these fail, which I'm worried they might if it's an adhesive issue. I've got some Tamiya decal adhesive on the way, and that's kind of my last resort. Alright. I'll leave those for a bit, and we'll come back to them later on. Fuck you, crane fly. So I'm shooting this several days after the fact. Basically, I was editing part 20 and realized I just kind of left all the decal shit hanging. The real reason with that is I honestly wasn't all that pleased with any of them, and I'll cover that in a minute, but I also went and yelled at the silhouette and played around with settings, decreased the blade depth from 2 to 1, increased the force, whatever you want to call it, thickness, I forget the exact bullshit that Silhouette names it. Basically tweaked that a bit, increased it so that the tracking stays a bit more on target instead of going astray as the vinyl kind of drags the blade around, and I ended up getting a much better cut of the tail codes. As you can see, you kind of need the phone to get the cut lines visible there. They're not perfect, but honestly they weren't perfect on the M's anyway, so okay, so let's look at the decals and what we've got going on with them. As you can see, as I sort of turn this thing here in the light, they're all kind of garbage. I am just not a fan of these decals at all. Not, even accepting for the silvering that on several of these looks like it's literally just a matter of fuck adhesive, right? Like the D one still shocks me at how poorly it went down, how poorly it sucked into details. I mean, right here at the wing root transition, that should be easy for something like Microsoft to deal with, but it just didn't stick. Several of these were still moving around a bit later, like this one, and it did not suck in at all. Yeah, I mean, up here the H has this whole thing it could suck into, and it just did not. Same with this tail code, it kind of did, kind of didn't. This one up here, bad overall. The Mr. Mark Softer, I think, reacted with the clear coat. Over here, more of the same, nothing great. The AK decal adapter shit the bed. This is the one that was put down with Solvaset, and it went down decently. I mean, I think the annoying silvering bullshit is less visible there than on any of the others, but as you can see, it kind of sits on top of the rivets. It doesn't sink into the detail at all, the way you would expect for something that literally had Solvaset put underneath it. The U and the N, same issues going on. And the insignia, too, kind of has that like soft thing going on with it. So I'm tempted to pull out some better decals and put them next to these just to rest easy that this is a thing with these decals and not me fucking around. And I may well do that, but basically enough different techniques, enough different products were used to knock these things down, and none of them really did a great job. So I'm glad that I went and fussed at the Silhouette to make it do what I wanted it to do, and now I have actual tail codes I can paint instead of relying on these shitty ass decals. The question remains of Fireball had one single kill mark under the canopy, and I'm going to need something for that, but I think I can scrounge that from somewhere else. So with that, I will release you all to go on to part 21, and we will stop the fucking around and get back to actually working on Fireball.